morning, citizens. You're now trapped in a nerd cage with your hosts Mark and Jay. We hope you have a smashing good time.
Yes, hello, welcome. That's right, you're trapped in Nerd Cage Live. This ain't just a reaction show, but a debate show and a live discussion on everything that makes people like you and I tick. So thank you for joining us tonight. And please hit the like button and subscribe. I'm your co-host, Jay St. G, coming to you live from Syracuse, New York, and always will be my man, The Fiend, from Louisville, Mark Withers. What's going on, man?
Hey, what's going on, man? Super excited to be here as usual, and here we are with another look back. It seems like August has all the best anniversaries for movies. So we're going to go ahead and take you through one more. We are going to dedicate this episode to the 25th anniversary of, I know this is one of Jay's favorite movies.
Sir.
Mortal Kombat. And Jay, I know that you know a ton of facts, a ton of things about this movie. So why don't you go ahead and take us through some of that?
Well, looking back, so I was a diehard Mortal Kombat fan from day one, and big shout out to Master Daniel Pesina for coming on our show last Thursday, and for everyone that came. Yes. It was a real fun time talking about Mortal Kombat, and we touched base on the movie a little bit. So where Master Daniel Pesina came in, he brought the characters to life, but the Mortal Kombat movie brought the story and the characters onto the big screen, and to this day, I call it nostalgia, to say whatever you want. I don't care. I was barely 10 at the time, not even 10 at the time when the movie came out, but I was so blown away because this movie delivered on all cylinders. It gave us us fans, what we wanted to see, was the moves and the fights and the special moves and everything else. It was mind-boggling that they got it, and the story, they got it right.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I was really, I was quite a bit older when it came out, older than you, but I loved it just the same. I mean, for anybody who is familiar or not familiar with the film, came out in 1995, and this is actually, if you think about it, it's pre-Matrix, it's
yes.
The era where you were hiring like professional actors and teaching them martial arts for these films. This was a time where instead you would cast an actual martial artist, like
yes.
Someone who was very experienced, and then just roll camera and then have them sort of act the best they could. And with that considered, I think that they really turned out a good film for its time.
You're right. I'm glad you brought that up, because to me, this was my Enter the Dragon. This was the first martial arts movie I ever seen in the theater. This was a gateway for me.
Right.
Because I know this wasn't the first major martial arts film. I know this wasn't like the biggest martial arts film, but at the time, I mean, Bruce Lee was already gone well over 20 years. Right. And it was already a number of years since Bloodsport came out. So martial arts was really at a point, it really wasn't like prominent like it is now. And I feel like now that Mortal Kombat was like one of the big martial arts movies that kind of kicked off the trend, because after Mortal Kombat, then we got Jackie Chan, then we got Jet Li immediately after they became big in Hollywood. On top of that, and this is one thing I want to point out about this movie, at the time, I feel like this movie is the perfect segue from where we are in films in general. Like, this film really marks the last movie I could think of that really heavily uses practical effects.
Yes.
But at the same time, it really started using the CGI a lot in the movie too. Like, it was like the beginning of CGI. I mean, it wasn't the first movie to do CGI, obviously, but I feel like it was kind of like in the early stages of seeing CGI, like heavy CGI in movies, as well as the end of practical effects in this movie. And I think that's what. And then we saw and then of course, as time went on, practical effects pretty much disappeared, and CGI was the thing.
Right. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because, I took a look at it, a couple of days ago, did a rewatch, and I did notice, how, by today's standards, it was pretty primitive. But if you take yourself back to 1995, there really wasn't a whole lot of CGI that was happening outside of, very big budget films.
Jurassic Park, Terminator 2.
Exactly. And so this was sort of the age of CGI's infancy, so to speak. So those effects to us at that time were pretty impressive. And you know, some of them even now sort of hold up. I think that, you know, all things considered, it actually still looks really good.
Yeah, and like Goro, which was a big sweaty meaty puppet and a man in a suit. It was a man in a suit, but the prop was a puppet there.
Right.
And it was amazing they were able to bring that puppet to life and using the robotics that they did. Still looks good, really impressive. I know some people might find it laughable. I think it's impressive, all things considering how big the budget was. That's another thing. The budget was only 18 million. Even at that time, was nothing.
Right.
Nothing. And the biggest actor, the most well-known actor, was Christopher Lambert.
Right.
And he was top headliner on the movie poster. So that's the other thing too, is there really wasn't a lot other than Christopher Lambert. There really wasn't a lot of big names in the movie, and there were a few unknowns on top of that.
Right. But you know, that said, these unknowns actually did a great job. I mean, I think Robin Shou really, you know, like he made his splash in this movie as Liu Kang. I had never seen him before in anything, but I was really impressed with him. To me, he was like the best part of the movie.
And I'm glad you mentioned Robin Shou first, because here's what I'm baffled about, is when this movie came out, I thought for sure Robin Shou was going to be a star, because not long after this movie, I don't know if you remember, there was a movie called Beverly Hills Ninja.
Yeah, I do remember that.
Yes. I went and I rented that when it came out, and Robin Shou was amazing in that movie.
Yeah.
He was amazing.
Yeah, I mean, he's a great martial artist. I think he's a really good actor.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm really surprised, that he really didn't that his career didn't really take off after that.
I know, it's a damn shame, because I mean, he's been in a lot of like smaller movies, throughout the last 20 years, but nothing major. Like I said, after Mortal Kombat and Beverly Hills Ninja, I thought for sure he was going to be a star, and I'm kind of baffled that he didn't. But I scratch my head to this day.
Yeah.
But we have to talk about the casting here. Some stuff that people that may or may not know this, and I cannot wait to talk about this.
Yeah, this is good stuff. I can't wait for you to say.
So Lyndon Ashby, who's basically an independent actor, he ended up getting the role of Johnny Cage, but there were several names before him, and there was one that was a lock, and that lock was Brandon Lee. Right. Brandon Lee was the lock for Johnny Cage. It was a done deal, and then The Crow happened, unfortunately, and we don't need to go into that. And I will say this: Brandon Lee would have knocked it out of the park. I think he would have been perfect for it. And
I can only imagine, like how much better, how much he would have elevated that film. I mean, how with his talent. I mean, he's a phenomenal actor, and he's every bit Bruce Lee's son. Like if you've seen movies like Rapid Fire, Showdown in Little Tokyo, I mean, he really was amazing in both of those movies. As well as The Crow. You and I talked off camera about like sort of the environment at the time. He really wasn't that big of a star at the time that he was cast, but I have no doubt that after this movie, his career would have taken off.
So I'm really excited about this, because we kind of did the same thing in X-Men, where we tossed some names around. Here are some more names after Brandon Lee. That were considered after The Crow, obviously. Right. Johnny Depp was considered.
Wow.
Tom Cruise. That obviously didn't happen. I'm sure Mission Impossible had everything to do with the reason why he wasn't there, and I'm sure budget too.
Yeah.
And of course, another one, to no surprise, Jean-Claude Van Damme. Now, as we talked about, it's funny. So as we talked about in the Pacino stream, was originally Mortal Kombat was going to be a Jean-Claude Van Damme game. And the character Johnny Cage was inspired by Jean-Claude Van Damme. So to come full circle, they wanted Jean-Claude Van Damme to play Johnny Cage. Didn't happen because of Street Fighter. Jean-Claude Van Damme chose Street Fighter over Mortal Kombat. I wonder if he regrets that.
He's got to be kicking himself every day over that.
Another Jean-Claude Van Damme regret. He regretted the Expendables, and he probably regretted Mortal Kombat.
Yeah,
So
stop saying
then,
no to things, Jean-Claude.
Yes, and then of course, Lyndon Ashby, who I thought knocked it out of the park. He
Absolutely.
had the look, he had the charisma. I loved it, and I loved how Johnny Cage was portrayed in the film, because in the original games, Johnny Cage is supposed to be a world-renowned superstar, an A-lister, and
Right.
you saw that in this movie. And the thing I love about this, another fun fact, the scene where you first get introduced to Johnny Cage filming the
Right.
movie.
Right.
The guy sitting in the director's chair was originally supposed to be Steven Spielberg.
Really?
Steven Spielberg was supposed to be in
Wow.
Mortal Kombat as a cameo, being the director arguing with Johnny Cage.
Wow.
So the actor that you see, that's why they got this Steven Spielberg look-alike. It was originally supposed to be Spielberg, and for whatever reason, I'm guessing due to scheduling conflicts, they couldn't get Spielberg to show up for the movie to do that scene.
Wow, that's crazy, man. That's insane.
I know.
Now,
I love talking about this.
Yeah. Now, wasn't Steve James supposed to be in it also? Do you know who that is from
No,
American
it's
Ninja?
No, I didn't. No, I wasn't aware of this.
Yeah, Steve James was actually he was a martial arts actor in the early to mid 1980s. He was in all of the American Ninja movies with Michael Dudikoff, and I think he was supposed to, if I read this correctly, I think he was supposed to play the role of Art Lean in the movie.
Oh,
But-
okay. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, but he had a heart attack, I think, and he passed away prior to filming.
Oh, okay. I was kind of
So that's
reading
how
about
they
that.
recast
Okay,
him.
so that's what it was. Who was supposed to? Okay, great. That makes sense now.
Mm-hmm.
Now let's shift gears over to Sonya. Bridget Wilson, again, loved her portrayal of Sonya. She knocked it out of the park.
Right.
But it was supposed to be Cameron Diaz, fresh off The Mask.
Wow.
They wanted Cameron Diaz, and she was a lock for Sonya. And what happened was she broke her wrist doing the martial arts the move rehearsals and stuff.
Man.
So then she couldn't do the movie, and then they brought back Bridget Wilson, who was they turned her down the first time, and then they asked her to come back.
Man, that is, like when you hear these stories, like you just kind of like, not that the movie isn't great as is,
Yeah.
but you just kind of imagine like what it would have been like with these, with these big stars who were, somewhat, obscure at the time, but,
Yeah.
we know their acting abilities. And so like, you wonder what type of film you would have ended up with.
Yes. Now let's shift gears just a little bit here. So you say the film that we wound up with. Okay, originally there were two cuts of the movie. I don't know if you knew this one.
No.
So the first cut of the movie, here's what happened. They completed the movie, and they had a test screen.
Right.
And when they finished the test screening, the consensus of everybody who saw this movie said the same thing. There was not enough fights, so they had to do additional scenes. And here's here we go. I can't wait to talk about this one.
Mm-hmm.
So there were two fights that were added to the movie post-production.
Okay.
The fight, the Johnny Cage Scorpion fight,
Right.
and the Liu Kang Reptile fight were added post-production.
Oh, okay.
So what happened was in the original cut, where Scorpion and Johnny Cage were fighting in the woods, and the scene where he's retracting the spear, retracting it, and Johnny Cage is running at Scorpion and does the shadow kick.
Yeah.
What was supposed to happen was the shadow kick was supposed to land on Scorpion and knock Scorpion out cold, and that was it. That was the end.
I see. Mm-hmm.
And then that was one of the things people were bothered by. Like, well, that's it. That's the fight right there. He just shadow kicks him, and that was it.
Right.
So then what they did was probably the best decision they ever made, and to this, I say it's the best fight in the movie, and it's one of my best favorite fights ever on film. The Johnny Cage Scorpion fight in Scorpion's Lair. Okay, that they spent extra money, a lot of money building that set, building that foundation there with all the skulls and the dust and the ladders and everything else. That they spent a lot of money. It was like one of the most expensive scenes of the film. There was building that, and they added that to the movie, and they added Fear Factory as the song there. Right on. Zero Signal from Fear Factory off Demanufacture was added to the soundtrack. It was added to the Scorpion fight. best decision they ever made. And I love that fight. And I'm gonna go off. I just gotta again fuzzy memories. I love this fight so much. Listen, it may not be. Listen, the martial arts in this movie may not be flashy or up to par with today's standards. I get that, but this fight with Johnny Cage and Scorpion, in Scorpion's lair, what makes this fight so awesome? Again, it's not very flashy, but the thing is, it's believable.
Right.
I 100% felt all the punches and kicks because you could tell if you know anything about the character of Scorpion. Scorpion is a ruthless killer. He's from hell. He doesn't care about your feelings. He doesn't care about your suffering because he is suffering. So he loves giving pain. And you could tell Lyndon Ashby was just hanging on to Daryl. He's just defending himself. He's just blocking all the punches. He gets taken down, and you see Scorpion just pounding and kicking like oh my! That felt real. It felt believable. It really looked like he was trying to hurt him.
Right.
It looked like a real fight. Like you watch this and like, man, he really looks like he's trying to hurt him. On top of that, Lyndon Ashby was rushed to the hospital during the filming of that fight. He was afterwards. He was urinating blood and everything.
Oh wow!
He was rushed to the hospital because he got hit to the ribs and the stomach so much by martial artist Chris Casamassa, who is a legit martial artist who runs a school. He beat the shit out of him during the filming of that fight, and that's why I love that fight so much, and that's why it's the best fight of the movie, probably the best fight of all the Mortal Kombat movies in any Mortal Kombat media. It's a believable fight, and it's hella entertaining, and it's greatly shot, and of course Fear Factory Zero Signal makes that fight scene that much better. On top of that, we got to see the Scorpion's fatality, with the mask removal and the fire breathing. I loved it. I remember I lost my mind. I'm like, oh my god, he's doing the fatality. Seeing that for the first time, because we got what we asked for. The specific moves from the game were in the movie. Right. And then on top of that, he does a little autograph there to my best fan Cage, which was his friendship move. I'm so glad they threw that in there too. So, oh my god, like I said, props to the filmmakers for making the decision to add in that fight scene post-production, as well as the reptile fight.
Right. Now, it's funny you mentioned the fatalities and stuff like that. I was going to ask you, because at the time that I watched it, when it came out initially, my main gripe was that there really weren't a whole lot of fatalities like that you recognize from the game, like a handful of them. So I wanted to know, as a super fan of Mortal Kombat, what do you think about that aspect of the game? Of the film? Did you want more blood and guts? Did you think that it was an appropriate amount given the type of movie it was? What did you think?
That's just it. I think given the fact that it was a PG-13 movie, that they were able to get away with what they did. Because you did see Scorpion explode. And of course, the scene where Sub-Zero freezes the guy and he breaks into a bunch of pieces. And if you see Sub-Zero get impaled by the ice spike, and then you see Kira Tagawa fall into the spikes. Right. In the pit, what was supposed to be like the pit. Right. I think, all things considering, as much as I'd love to see an R-rated full-on gore, I thought for what they had in the budget and for what they had in a PG-13 rating, I thought they pulled it off very well and got away with what they could. Right. And I think they did the best they could, and I think they did it very well. Right.
So,
no, go ahead.
No. I was going to mention, like you talked about Fear Factory, being in the soundtrack. I was going to say that soundtrack overall to me was incredible. Like, I was a big fan of it at the time. So much, in fact, I think that I mentioned in our live stream on Thursday that I'm not a gamer. And so I wasn't that familiar with the game, but I was very familiar with the theme song because they were playing that in clubs. They were playing that on certain radio stations. And in a lot of ways, that Mortal Kombat, that was like
Technocentric.
you heard that everywhere.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Before you were even aware that it was a game, you know, some of us anyways. And so to have that in the actual film was awesome. Tracy Lords has a good song in there.
Waiting for you to mention Tracy Lords.
Yeah, I mean,
for those who don't know,
yeah,
you've seen the movie Blade.
Right.
She's the blonde-haired vampire in the first Blade movie.
That's right.
And there's other things that she was involved in, but we won't go in that territory.
we won't discuss those here.
We won't discuss that, but yeah, I was just looking at the soundtrack and I'm like, wait, Tracy Lords was in the soundtrack?
Yeah, I was pretty impressed.
Typo Negative was in the soundtrack.
Right.
Fear Factory. GZR. Do you remember GZR?
I don't remember.
Geezer Butler's band from the 90s.
Oh,
It
right.
was with Burton C. Bell from Fear Factory.
Yes.
That was his 90s project there. GZR, Plastic Planet. The
Nice.
song's called The Invisible. That was in that album and on the soundtrack. And I think we've kind of discussed this before, but there was a band called Crawl Space, which was pre-Seven Dust.
Yes.
They were supposed to be on the album, but their song didn't make the cut.
Right. Yeah. And I remember hearing something about that. But
Yes.
overall, I thought that soundtrack was solid, man.
And here's another fun fact. The Mortal Kombat soundtrack, if I'm not mistaken, was the very first techno / EDM music album to go platinum. First in history.
I believe that because I remember when the film came out, how big the soundtrack was. And how, you know, like if you were riding in somebody's car, a lot of times they had that cassette or they had that CD playing.
Yes.
You know, so yeah, in a lot of ways, I think the soundtrack helped to drive the movie.
Yes.
Because again, like, you know, Mortal Kombat, obviously it was a hit game. It was a big enough game that they were able to make a successful film out of it. But for a lot of people who weren't gamers, they were driven by that music and by the arts aspect of it. And so I think it was like a perfect marriage. Like they really picked all the right music for it.
And on top of that, another one, big mention there, Buckethead did the Goro song.
Right.
Which was awesome. If anyone's familiar with Buckethead, he's a phenomenal guitarist. And shout out to George S. Clinton. He's still active in the movie industry. He's done a lot of mute scores for a lot of TV shows and other movies. But I loved his score in the movie that he did. Like I said, the Goro theme, and I also love the theme. Oh my God, the scene where Liu Kang arrives at the Shaolin Temple.
Yes.
Love that score there. It's so amazing. I like so much right about that with that soundtrack in the score.
I agree.
Top notch. It's a time capsule, and it's always, every time I hear it, it just takes me back to that time when I was a kid playing the game and seeing it on the movies, man.
Right.
Love it. Love it.
Right on.
And I want to add a few other tidbits here. Now the filming, interesting, is they filmed in Los Angeles, obviously, and they also filmed in Thailand.
Right.
Now there's a great article from the Hollywood Reporter from 5 years ago during the 20th anniversary of the film. The stuff that happened during filming, very, very interesting when they filmed in Thailand. All the island scenes were in Thailand. Christopher Lambert, again, the biggest star of the movie, was told not to go to Thailand to film because whatever insurance that he had, like some kind of actor agreement or something, he wasn't allowed to leave the country because if he were to get injured or something were to happen, he wouldn't have been covered. All his lawyers told him, do not go to Thailand to film the movie, just film in Los Angeles. But there was a problem though. There were scenes where Raiden was needed in the film. So what they wanted to do was they were going to have a body double for Raiden. And then Christopher Lambert was just going to record all his lines and they were going to shoot some shots in Los Angeles and kind of like, cut it into the movie.
Right.
That didn't happen. Christopher Lambert went out of his way, spent his own money to fly out to Thailand to film the movie in Thailand when he was ordered not to. Very well could have saved the movie.
Wow, yeah, that's commitment, man. Yeah,
Yep.
Props to Christopher Lambert for that.
And we talked about Robin Shou earlier. Robin Shou did all the fight choreography in the entire film.
Really? I didn't know he did the choreography. That
Yep,
makes a lot of
he did.
sense. That makes a lot of sense.
All the fight choreography, and it's funny. Robin Shu was also friends with Ho Sung Pak,
Right.
who was the original Liu Kang, and he was talking about the story. And I think you can find the video that back in 91, 92, when they started making Mortal Kombat, Ho Sung Pak told him, "Oh yeah, I'm going to be doing this game called Mortal Kombat, and they want me to play this character and blah 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 blah." And he thought it was the most ridiculous thing he ever heard in his life. Come to find out, 2 or 3 years later, he was going to play that character on film.
That's awesome. I hadn't heard that story, man. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Like I said, there's so many stories out of the filming of this movie and everything that happened with this movie and whatnot. And I love the product that was turned out was absolutely amazing. Like I said, I know the fight scenes are a little outdated, the special effects are outdated, but the movie, the one thing that movie delivers is it brought Mortal Kombat to screen. It was just amazing. Prior to Mortal Kombat, we had the Street Fighter movie. Bad. I mean, I enjoy it to some level because it's goofy, but the Street Fighter movie, for the most part, was pretty bad.
Yes.
The Mario Brothers movie, that was, a lot was on the line for that movie.
Right.
It was bad, and it was just amazing because Mario Brothers was already around for more than 10 years before that movie came out. Street Fighter was around for almost 10 years when that came out. Mortal Kombat was only around for 3 years.
Exactly.
It was a fast turnaround going from the first game to the movie. It was a fast turnaround. And it's just fascinating how fast Mortal Kombat became this property, and then everything that followed, the merchandise, the live tour that they did, the cartoon series that was on USA, the sequel, which I hated, by the way, and and there was a series called Mortal Kombat Conquest that was on UPN at the time. Right around the same time where like Hercules and Xena was a big thing.
Yeah,
Mortal Kombat Conquest. Yeah, so like Mortal Kombat became like this international property and like across all media. It was everywhere, man. Just like in the mid 90s, Mortal Kombat was everywhere, and it's just amazing how far, like, from like this little small budget arcade game, just exploded, man.
Right. Yeah, and that was something that I was going to mention too. Is that from my memory, that was really like the first successful video game adaptation. Like there were other films that came out, that were video game inspired that really didn't do what they were supposed to do. Double Dragon comes to mind, and there were a few others. You mentioned Mario Brothers and stuff like that, but Mortal Kombat was the first one where, they didn't check all the boxes, but they checked all the important boxes.
Yes.
And it was, it was everything it needed to be for 1995.
And Roger Ebert even liked the movie, shockingly enough. I mean, there was it was kind of some of the other critics didn't like, but Roger Ebert defended the movie.
Right.
Another thing I forgot to film about the filming. I didn't know if you knew this one.
Okay.
The Outworld scenes.
Okay.
You know what they used to film Outworld?
No.
Okay, do you remember the steel mill from Terminator 2?
Yeah.
The steel mill from Terminator 2, same place, was used to film the Outworld scenes.
Wow. That's cool.
I know, right?
That's good to know.
I found that out recently. So yeah, they filmed in Thailand and then of course the steel mill for in Los Angeles.
Right. Right.
Really freaking awesome.
Now, one of the go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Now, okay. So one of the things I was going to say is that I read that they originally wanted there to be a sort of a romance angle between Liu Kang and Kitana. And for whatever reason, they cut that part out of the movie.
Well, it was kind of there.
Okay. Yeah, what I was going to say is, like, do you know if they actually filmed those scenes? Like, do those scenes exist? Or was it just like a concept and they were just like, we'll just like push that off to the side?
Well, I don't know, because as we mentioned earlier, there were 2 cuts of the film after the test screening. Now, if you go back and watch the original trailer for the movie, there were scenes in that trailer that did not make it to the film.
Did not make the cut. Right.
And I think they interviewed in one of the interviews with I think it was a fan interview with Robin Shu, and he says he doesn't recall that he doesn't know what was cut and what wasn't. He doesn't know if they still exist or not, and if they do, they don't know where who has it.
Right.
And I'd be interested to see if Paul Anderson, the director. Speaking of Paul Anderson, he's done some great films. He even brought Resident Evil to life. Event Horizon. He swung and missed on Alien versus Predator. I'll say that right now.
Right.
But I do appreciate Paul Anderson's work because he brought Mortal Kombat to life. But I wonder if either Paul Anderson or Lawrence Kasanoff has any of that footage the cutting room footage.
Right.
Would I like to see a director's cut of this film? Absolutely, absolutely. But I don't think it's going to happen. If it did, it would have happened by now.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. With it being the 25th anniversary, you would think that there'd be some kind of remaster in the works or some kind of re-release, with deleted scenes or something like that. But maybe their focus is more on the upcoming Mortal Kombat. Maybe they don't want to take away any shine from that, any kind of buzz from it.
Yeah. Now, I will say this though. Now, I know there are fans out there that nitpick the movie, and I understand. But I think they did pretty well considering. Okay, so some of the retcons. Well, here's a lot of things that were Mortal Kombat changed. Not only the franchise forever. The concept of there being 10 Mortal Kombat tournaments before Shao Kahn could invade Earth.
Right.
That was implemented into the movie. That wasn't made by the game, and then the games adapted that afterwards.
I see.
Which was cool. The other thing that was a big change, and they changed it moving forward. Kano, the character Kano, Richard DeVizio, originally his version of Kano in the game, Kano was supposed to be half American, half Japanese.
Right.
So in the movie, he's obviously Australian.
Right.
Since then, every portrayal of Kano since then, Kano's been Australian.
Really?
Yep.
Wow. That's good
another big change that the movie did. Now this was just done for the movie, was not done in the game. So in the game, okay, so they mentioned I am Liu Kang in the movie. I am Liu Kang, descendant of Kung Lao.
Right.
Liu Kang wasn't the descendant of Kung Lao. It actually was the other Shaolin monk named Kung Lao who was the descendant of the great Kung Lao.
I see.
That didn't bother me. I'm always will wonder to this day why they didn't fit Kung Lao into the movie. That's okay, but in the game, Liu Kang's not the descendant of Kung Lao. So that's one thing that the movie kind of took the liberty of doing. Doesn't bother me. I mean, they only had one movie. They didn't know if they were going to make a sequel or not. So I thought that concept worked pretty well, that he was the descendant of the man that defeated Shang Tsung the first time and whatever. So that was cool. It was done. It was executed well. Just that was one of the things that they kind of like retconned into the movie. And the other big thing, and this bothers a lot of fans too, was we didn't get to see the rivalry between Sub-Zero and Scorpion.
Right.
They kind of glossed over it. At least they acknowledged it. They acknowledged it. But the thing is, you only can fit so much into a 90-minute movie. It's amazing that they're able to put in the characters Sonya, Johnny Cage, and Liu Kang. Adding Sub-Zero and Scorpion, their origins, just, I don't know if they would have had the time or the budget to do it, but at least they acknowledged it, saying, Scorpion and Sub-Zero, deadliest of enemies, but slaves under my power. So,
right. Yeah, it was kind of like
they
a
acknowledged
verbal,
it was there. Yeah,
verbal acknowledgement. One thing that...
Yeah, I understand why the fans are upset about that.
Yeah. I mean, and I don't know that I would be like super upset about that, but I mean, I get it. I'm the same way, like I've mentioned in other episodes, that I like for certain things to be shown and not explained. And that would have been like a cool scene to have some kind of flashback or some scene where they're fighting each other. That probably would have made it a little bit better. But I do get that, they were under time constraints, and it does make sense that they kind of just glossed over that, because it wasn't a super important part of the narrative that they were trying to tell at the time.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess a few closing thoughts, like they're, again, for all things considered, they nailed the stories and the characters dead on. What I loved about this movie is, not taking anything away from Ho Sung Pak, but basically in the game, like every fighting game, there's always that Bruce Lee clone.
Right.
That's what Liu Kang was in the game, was just a Bruce Lee clone. He was the chosen one, the hero, but he didn't really have much of a personality. I mean, it's kind of hard to show off a personality in the narrative of the games at the time.
Right.
Robin Shu gave the character Liu Kang a personality, and I loved it. That he was sick of hearing about the ways of the monks and whatever. He left to go to America, and it was his brother's death that caused him to come
blamed
back.
Himself. And then
he had his little scuffles with with Johnny Cage. He threw his back luggage into the
That
water.
was a great scene too.
Speaking of, my reaction probably would have been a little different if someone took my luggage and threw it in the water and took my money. I think I would have challenged him to. Actually, they kind of did. He was like, "Hey, buddy," and then he got bodied by Sonya. But my reaction, I would have reacted a little bit different. That's another thing.
Especially at the time, right? Because this is his luggage. This is like everything that he's bringing with him on the. Like if I lose my luggage, because I've lost my luggage, like the airlines have lost my luggage before. Yeah. And I was irate. I knew that eventually I'd get it back, but I was furious about it.
Yeah.
This guy took his suitcase and just threw it in the water and walks off. And Johnny Cage's reaction was just like, well, it's a good thing I didn't have him park
the car.
You know what I mean?
Don't get me wrong, it's funny, but I'm watching this as an adult and I'm like, dude.
Major underreaction.
Yeah. And then another underreaction, if we want to go, like I said, we're nitpicking the movie. No taste of things to come, and then Sub-Zero freezes the guy and the guy explodes. My reaction would have been a little bit different if I saw a man freeze a man and he exploded in front of me. I would have been like, I'm out of this tournament. Like,
right, I'm done.
There were so many people in that tournament, like not one person like stood up like, oh my God, like what am I doing here? I mean, I know Johnny Cage kind of had his reaction when Raiden came in and electrocuted Sub-Zero and Scorpion. And oh my God, why is this guy freezing stuff? Why does this guy have stuff coming on his hand? Why is this guy made out of electricity? Okay. But again, even after seeing that, I think my reaction would have been different if I saw a man just get frozen and explode just after I was just done eating dinner, of all things.
Yeah, that was
everybody there's like calm and collected, time. Like, and he's like, "Oh, just a little tournament." Said, "Good for the career," he said. Yeah, right. No, my reaction would be like, "Oh my God, dude! Like, what am I doing here?"
Yeah, at least, Johnny Cage at the very least, right? Because you could make the argument that a lot of the other competitors
guys knew what was happening.
Right, they knew what they were getting themselves into. Maybe they had been there before, but like Johnny Cage had no idea what he was like signing up for, and to actually see that, you know what I mean? Like if I was him, I'd be like, yeah, I'm done. They can call me a fake if they want to.
Yeah. Yeah. That's another thing, picking on Johnny Cage again. What was Johnny Cage doing the whole time Liu Kang was fighting Reptile?
Right, like, yeah.
like he was there. Was he just watching? Like,
right.
Like, I think it would have been a little bit cooler if maybe there were two reptiles, maybe, and they both fought. Maybe they were both fighting the reptiles, and maybe like Johnny Cage was getting overpowered by a reptile, and then Liu Kang came to save him. Right. Maybe that would have been a little bit better instead of just. But again, this was one of those things that was added post-production.
Right.
Maybe Lyndon Ashby really wasn't on set. That's just my guess. But,
right. And from what I read, that like Robin Shou said that reptile scene was like really difficult to film, because he was basically not fighting anyone. Like it was just kind of like he's just fighting air, and he didn't really know where to kick, where to look. And so I don't know, there may have been other like hurdles as far as filming, to where maybe they were like, well, let's not even have Lyndon Ashby do anything here, because it's probably going to be too much, too difficult to do.
Oh yeah, good point. Another thing too, interesting fact. The martial artist that played Reptile, his name was Keith Cook.
Yeah.
He was actually in the running to play Liu Kang.
Really?
He didn't get it.
Okay.
So I thought that was kind of an interesting fact too, is that he didn't get Liu Kang, but he got Reptile, and that was in post production too.
Right.
So, yeah. So there were my nitpicks. I know some people said, well, how did Johnny Cage get out of Scorpion's lair? I always thought, back in my mind, I always thought, well, same way he got in. Probably got in through a portal. Yeah. So
yeah, the bigger question for me was like, what was he doing just randomly walking through the woods like that? Like, did they ever explain that? Because I missed that both times that I watched it. Like, I watched a couple times like recently, and I was just like, why is he just randomly walking through this forest when his friends are actually like?
Well, it's funny you mentioned that. I guess I'm glad you brought that up, because I didn't think of this. But if you watch the movie again, Johnny Cage is okay. So the first fight, you see Liu Kang fight that black dude with the dreads.
Yeah.
You see Johnny Cage standing there.
Right.
But during the Kano fight, he's not there.
Right.
Liu Kang is there. Obviously, there's shots of Liu Kang reacting to because he's worried for Sonya because Kano clocked her a couple of times.
Yeah.
But Johnny Cage was nowhere to be found in the background there. But then they show him wandering around, and there he was getting challenged by Scorpion.
Right.
Yeah, they never really explained why he was wandering around, but
it doesn't kill the movie for me, but it was one of those little things where it kind of bugged me, like, well, his friends are actually competing for their lives, and they might be his only ticket off this island, or off of Outworld or whatever. And
the island.
It was the island. You're right. So like, they're like actually fighting right now. Like, it doesn't seem to make sense that he would just be like randomly, oh, now's a good time to just walk around and like see what's going on. Also, side note, the guy, the black guy with the dreads that you just mentioned, his name is Hakeem Alston. He was in a show called WMAC Masters that came out around the time of Mortal Kombat with Ho Sung Pak, who was the original.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
This is why I love this. We're spitting these facts that everyone else may not know. That's awesome. So I learned something new from you, so thank you for that. Another thing that's interesting about the movie too, here's one thing I did like that they did, and I get it. The movie, the first Mortal Kombat movie basically combined Mortal Kombat 1 and 2, the games. And here's why. The first game takes place on Shang Tsung's island. The second game, after Liu Kang ultimately defeats, by the way, Liu Kang was originally in the game, he defeated Goro and Shang Tsung. Right. I'm kind of glad they let Johnny Cage beat Goro in the movie, but that's another big retcon there. But the first game takes place on Shang Tsung's island. The second game, the second tournament, was the tournament in Outworld. What they cleverly kind of combined the two, where like, yes, the tournament is on Shang Tsung's island, and then Johnny Cage makes that deal with Shang Tsung, saying, "I will challenge Goro right now." Right. And and then he said, "Well, if you do win, then I reserve the right to change the tournament to Outworld and pick who I want to fight." I liked how they did that, because then that's when Johnny Cage and Liu Kang journeyed into Outworld. So I'm glad they kind of combined the first and second game into the movie like that. And then the ending, the ending was basically Mortal Kombat 3. Mortal Kombat 3 is where Shao Kahn was fed up of losing, breaks the rules, and just invades Earth. And that's what you saw at the end, where Shao Kahn was pissed that he lost, and he just decides to invade Earth. Was where the first movie ends and where the crappy second movie pretty much begins. But I liked how they cleverly kind of combined both the first two games, and obviously Katana as well, who was in the second game, not the first game. How they kind of incorporate elements from both games into this movie. It was well done. Interesting too that they refer to him, Shao Kahn, as the Emperor and not by his name. By name throughout the whole movie, and I was always wondering why that was. Do you know? Here's what my guess was: is maybe the general audience could have gotten lost. Well, who's Shao Kahn and blah blah blah. So that'd be my guess. But yeah, you're right. It's kind of an interesting. They never. Yeah, you're right. I never knew why they just referred to him as he is the Emperor. Sure. So Christopher Lambert's character, he said on the boat that Outworld's ruled by an immortal who found himself as Emperor. Right. So, but they never referred to him by name, but they do show him though. Right. So at the end, I mean, you do see like a glimpse of him, like in the "It has begun," and then and then they reveal him at the end. Yeah, exactly. And I think if memory serves, and forgive me if I'm wrong because I only watched it once, they kind of did the same thing as far as not mentioning his name in Scorpion's Revenge, and like the animated film. Like they didn't actually like say his name; they just referred to him as the Emperor. So I was just like, is there like some legal reason why they can't say that? Like, I was just curious about it. If maybe you knew. No, I don't know why. I mean, I guess maybe it's just they just want to leave these clues. Well, who is the Emperor? Right. Maybe. I think maybe for like the general audience who maybe never played the game or just doesn't know the story, I think maybe that's just like they just want to throw this little clue out. Well, who's the Emperor? That's just my guess. So. Yeah, and that makes sense too. Yeah, and then and again, like you said, like at the very end, Liu Kang at the very end of the movie, last thing Liu Kang's like, well, what's happening? And then Raiden just calmly looks over and says, "The Emperor."
Right. Right.
So, and I like how that ended. I remember I got pumped like, oh my God, it's Shao Kahn. They're going to do a second movie, you know. Oh man. So again, the first movie, I still love the first movie. I feel like it's the first video game movie that got it right for the most part. And it did change video game movies forever. Because I feel like all the game movies that came out after that still couldn't really get it right.
Right.
I mean, even as great as like as successful as like the Sonic movie was, or to Detective Pikachu, and even the Tomb Raider movies, but they weren't. Those are not true adaptations, though. They're basically like Sonic was just basically, oh, let's bring Sonic from his world to our world, and you know, I didn't see the Tomb Raider the reboot. I need to check that out. But like Detective Pikachu, that's not like, you know, that's just like an alternate universe where Pokemon are roaming around the earth. Mortal Kombat was really the first movie that took place in the
direct
same
translation.
Like, yes, direct translation to film. So,
and you're right. Because I was thinking about that too, and I was like, well, you know, Resident Evil came out like shortly thereafter, like a few years after, but that story was nothing like the Resident.
Yeah, it's basically Resident Evil in the same universe as the game.
Exactly. Exactly.
And I do love the Resident Evil movies. That's something I can't wait to. I'm hoping we can do some look backs at those or something at some point. I like those. It's the first one's the best one.
First one is the best one. I agree. Especially that soundtrack is sick. It's got Slipknot on it. You know,
Marilyn Manson scored the movie. Yeah.
Oh, really? Scored the whole movie? That's good.
Yeah, Marilyn Manson scored the first Resident Evil movie.
Awesome.
Yeah. So yeah, Paul Anderson, like I said, he did a great job with this movie. He did a great job with Resident Evil, Event Horizon. I need to go back and watch Event Horizon again because it's been so many years. It's kind of like a cult movie now that it's kind of like one of those movies that people are just discovering, and I need to go back and see it. And then again, Alien vs. Predator, he swung and missed. He did a movie called Death Race with Jason Statham and Robert Shaw was in it.
Right.
That one's good. The first one, I'd never seen the other ones, but the first Death Race movie was pretty rad. That was a Paul Anderson movie. So yeah, I'm a fan of Paul Anderson. Again, he changed the world forever with Mortal Kombat.
Right on.
So post Mortal Kombat, Annihilation. So you told me a story, because you're a little older. You told me the story about how you went and saw Superman 3 in the movie theater, and how you were like 10 or 11 at the time, and you were talking about how mad you were when you walked out of the theater.
Yes. It's like, this is not Superman's story at all. It was obviously a cash grab. And you know, for anybody who doesn't know like the history of like any of those early like Richard Donner, like Christopher Reeve Superman movies, after the first two movies, the franchise was bought by Canon Films. And Canon was the same company that did like Revenge of the Ninja, Enter the Ninja. They were known for doing these very cheap, very low budget movies, and they took the same approach with Superman, and they basically took the character and just wrote their own little mythos around it that had nothing to do with Superman from the DC universe. And I remember as a kid, like walking out of that just furious, like, what did they just do?
So in case anyone's asking, well, Jason, where are you going with this?
Yeah.
I was about the same age as Mark when I saw Mortal Kombat Annihilation in the theater opening weekend. I remember my mom dropped me off to let me go see this movie. And I feel like that was the first time in my life where I walked out of the movies mad. Even as keep in mind, I'm 11. I don't have the perception or the smarts that I do as an adult, and can, you know, watch the movie with critical thinking and understand film. I'm just a kid, just wanting to see a sequel to Mortal Kombat. I walked out of there so mad. The movie was so bad that my 11-year-old self was furious. The way that they ruined Mortal Kombat, they ruined a lot of the characters, they recasted a lot of the characters. I was so mad. I had a knot in my stomach. I was so mad at how that movie turned out.
Man. And I never got a chance to actually watch it. I was planning to watch it when it first came out, but so many people saw it ahead of me, and they were like, "Don't. Like, you'll be pissed off if you watch it." So I just skipped it, and then to this day, I still haven't seen it.
But one good thing that came out of the movie, and it's a damn shame it never became a hit. There is a TV show that came out on UPN. Around, this is off the heels of Hercules' Legendary Journeys and Xena Warrior was hot at the time. And these shows that take place in in early times with Greek mythology and stuff like that, like these shows that take place years in the past. Mortal Kombat Conquest takes place 500 years before the first movie, and it tells the story of the original Kung Lao.
Wow.
And I loved this show. I loved it as a kid. I still love it now. It is bad. I acknowledge the acting is bad. The special effects are subpar, but the fights are great. There are some great fights in here. But the storytelling is great. If you're a fan of the lore of Mortal Kombat, there are some great episodes. It only ran for one season. It ran for one season for like 20 episodes. It says it takes place 100 years in the past. Right. It's Liu Kang's ancestor there, the great Kung Lao, and he just won the tournament against Shang Tsung. It's a younger Shang Tsung, portrayed by Bruce Locke, who was a great. He's no Cary Tagawa, but he does a great job on Shang Tsung.
Right.
And then there are other characters. Kitana is in the series. You see one of Sub-Zero's ancestors.
Wow.
You see one of Scorpion in the movie. I don't like the portrayal of Scorpion. But then there's also the Black Dragon. I mean, there's no Kano obviously, but there's an episode about the Black Dragon.
Right.
They even bring in characters like Rico from Mortal Kombat 4 because at the time he was one of Shao Kahn's generals. And there's also what else? You see Rain. There's and Noom Saibot. Like there are so many characters that are brought to life in this series that ran for one season. Fun fact: the female lead in the show is no other than Christiana Loken. For those who don't know, she was the villain in Terminator 3.
Really? Okay.
Yep. So she's like 18, 19 years old at the time of this when this came out, and she plays a thief named Tarja, who forms an alliance with Kung Lao. So there are some great things, and some funny thing is about this show. Eva Mendes makes an appearance on the show. This is before she was famous.
Really?
And there are wrestlers. There are WWE wrestlers that play like these bad guys. Like, it's fascinating. Like, maybe if you don't like it, it's a fascinating watch because there are so many big names that are in the show that before they got famous. And again, and Quan Chi. That's another thing too. Is you see Quan Chi in this series, and Quan Chi plays a prominent role in the series, and he's awesome. One of the best parts of the series.
Nice.
And I will say this, and I stand to this. This is the best version of Shao Kahn. Shao Kahn's in this series, and Shao Kahn is awesome in this series. Because I didn't like how he's portrayed in the second movie, and I don't like how he's portrayed in the series, the web series that came out.
Right.
This is the best on-screen version of Shao Kahn you will get. If you're a fan, like I said, if you're a fan of the lore, and if you're just curious, this is $20 on Amazon. All the episodes on DVD. Just get it. It's worth a watch. As bad as it is, you can laugh at it, but there are some elements that you can really enjoy. And as a kid, I loved this show. Fair warning, it's got. How do I put this lightly without sounding like a? The women in this show were wearing very revealing outfits, and since I was like 10 or 11 at the time this came out, maybe or 12 maybe, that was like softcore porn to me, and I kept thinking to myself, oh my god, if my mom walks in right now and sees me watching this, she's gonna turn the TV off and scream at me.
And this was network TV that it came on?
Yes. This is on. It was on UPN. Like it was on like Thursday nights and Saturday mornings. Like, wow. And I'm like watching this. And I'm thinking to myself, like I was like, oh my god, if my mom walks in right now, she's gonna turn it off. And my mom, oh Jason, what are you watching? Oh, I'm watching Mortal Kombat. There's a Mortal Kombat TV show. Oh, that's fine, dear. But my god, if my mom walked in.
Right.
Oh yeah. So when you watch this, I think some. I'm not trying to put any feminists down, but like, the way the women are portrayed in this show may piss off
wouldn't be
a lot
okay
of people.
today. Yeah.
Yeah, would not be okay today. And again, it takes place in the past, so women at the time were treated differently. So just a fair warning when you're watching this and you're seeing the way the women are portrayed in the revealing outfits. Just brace yourself and like. Just want to throw that warning out there. It's a product of its time, and you know, again, this is well over 20 years ago now.
Right.
Things were different at the time, but I say it's definitely worth the watch for those fans who never heard of it or just curious. It's a recommendation from your boy Jay.
Right. Where can people see that if they wanted to like stream it? Do you know?
I don't think it's out there.
You'd have to. Get
I
a
think
physical
YouTube.
copy.
I think YouTube. I think some people have it on YouTube. I think there are some YouTube rips up there on YouTube, but you can just buy it on Amazon. It's Prime eligible. You can buy it on Amazon Prime for $20.
Oh wow. Okay.
So, but if you don't want to waste your $20, then you could probably find these episodes on YouTube. I just don't know if they're in proper order or if they're all on there.
You'd
But
have to
it's
do some detective work on your own.
Yeah.
Kind of get it together.
And before we go, we end this segment here. I do feel like we have to mention the Mortal Kombat Legacy.
Okay.
Mark, I definitely recommend you watching it. I liked Legacy.
Okay.
The first season. It's into 10 different episodes. They have origin stories for different characters. It starts off with Jax, Sonya, and Kano.
Right.
And then it shimmies over to Johnny Cage. Then it shimmies over to Raiden, which I think might be the best one. And then it shimmies over to Melina and Katana and Shao Kahn, which I didn't like. I didn't like how they portrayed Shao Kahn.
Right.
And then it ends on a high note. It does the origin stories of the robot cybernetic ninja Cyrex and Sector.
Nice.
That one might be the best one, and that one, how as a kid, when you played Mortal Kombat 3 and they explain how the Lin Kuei made these ninjas, these cybernetic, these robotic ninjas, that's how I pictured it.
Right.
And I think people should definitely watch it. It's, again, I believe it's available on YouTube. You can buy the Blu-ray. It's affordable, but yeah. Mark, I definitely recommend you watching it. I think I'd like to hear your thoughts on it when you get to it. Again, the second season, not so good, but the first season, again, alternate take on the story. It's more of a realistic, grounded take on it, but it's dynamite.
Now, is that the season? Now, is that the series with Michael Jai White?
Yes.
Okay.
Michael Jai
Right.
White plays Jax because he was supposed to play Jax in Mortal Kombat Annihilation, but turned it down
Right.
for Spawn. And then Jerry Ryan, Governor Ryan's wife, and she's also 7 of 9 in Star Trek.
Right.
She plays Sonya, a great Sonya. And then
That'd be a good pick. Yeah.
yeah. And then one of the guys, I forgot, the guy who plays Kano was in 300. Not Gerald Butler, obviously. One of the guys from 300 plays Kano. Matt Mullins plays Johnny Cage. Phenomenal job. Probably one of the better portrayals. And then the Raiden episode's really good. It's some people say it's like a ripoff of Thor. Basically, Raiden falls into false Earth, but he doesn't have his powers, and he falls into like a mental institution.
Right.
And he's trying to get to organize his warriors for Mortal Kombat, but the mental institution are laughing at him, saying, "Oh, so you're the god Raiden? Well, what are you doing?" Yeah. Very, very awesome take on it. And then the Scorpion Sub-Zero, dynamite. Although it's a huge retcon, it takes place in feudal Japan when Sub-Zero is supposed to be Chinese, but they retconned it and made him Japanese.
Right.
But it's still a cool watch. And then, of course, the Cybernetic Ninjas.
Right.
Great. It's a damn shame that they didn't get the second season right. It's a damn shame that we didn't get the movie that we were promised that we were going to get.
For. Yeah.
And now we're getting a whole entirely different movie, as far as we know, in January.
Yeah, and that's the one that I'm waiting for. Like I'm excited to see Louis Tan in this. I'm a big fan of his from now I can't even think of the name of the show. Oh man, it was just like on the tip of my tongue. Into the Badlands. If you've ever watched that, I
know all that. Never watched it. It was on AMC, right?
Yeah, it was on AMC, and it was all about these land barons in the future, where it's a dystopian future, and it's run by, they're basically cogs, which are basically slaves, like serfs almost. Yeah. And there are these barons, and then the barons have bodyguards that are called clippers that will go and they'll either execute someone on their behalf or they'll stay and defend the baron. And so he plays one of the clippers in the show, and he's phenomenal. His martial arts skills are like off the charts.
Now, is that show available on Netflix or anything like that?
I believe it's on Netflix now.
Ooh,
yeah, because they recently canceled the show. So
good, because I want to watch just to prep. I want to see this guy because, again, not confirmed. The rumor is he's Johnny Cage. As far as I know, I don't know. Right. They haven't officially announced who he's playing, but they're saying he's going to play the main character in the movie. So
Yeah, and that would make sense. I could
Yeah.
see him as a Johnny Cage for sure.
and even Master Pacina has expressed his excitement for this new Mortal Kombat movie coming out. So
Yeah, and that
we're
was
all
you know,
excited.
yeah, and that now that since you mentioned it, I think that what we'll do is we'll post the audio only version of that live stream on Podbean, Stitcher, Spotify
Excellent.
for anybody that wants to listen to it. It really was a captivating interview that we did with him. He laid out the entire history as far as how they formed the game, how they developed the camera, the characters, how they developed the fatalities. I mean, it was a really great hour that we spent with him. And so, yeah, we'll make that available audio only for anybody who wants to listen to it.
Absolutely, and he was such a great guest, and I was smiling ear to ear, and I felt like his positivity really like it rubs off of him. Like I felt his positivity, and just talking to him, I felt great after we were done with that with that stream.
Yeah.
And everyone in comments from everybody, everyone's messaging me like, Jason, that was so great, and the viewer count's growing and growing. Like people really love it, and then we had so many people drop in and drop their questions, and it was great. I'm so happy with that turnout, and thanks to everybody, and thank you to Master Pacina, and thank you, Mark, for helping me getting this together and running everything. It was just great turnout. I really hope everyone finds the time to check it out, and for those who don't want to sit through the an hour and a half, we'll post the highlights too.
We'll do some clips, like some of the finer points of the episode.
Yeah, so that's all I got. I mean, Mortal Kombat it's ready, available on Netflix. You can buy it on Blu-ray. Again, just if you haven't seen it, or if you haven't seen it in a while, just go into it knowing that this is 1995. But I feel like everyone, whether if you're a fan of the franchise or not, I feel like everyone can get some kind of enjoyment out of this film.
Yeah, and to echo what you just said, I mean, this was this was at the height of 90s action. And so if you're familiar with that type of action, sort of Jean-Claude Van Damme, Steven Seagal, it was that type of martial arts film, and it was the very beginning of CGI and those types of effects.
Yeah.
So that said, I mean, I think that they did a phenomenal job with the technology that they had available.
Yes. So I guess we'll wrap this up, and we're gonna be doing a post DC Fandom reaction to follow this episode. So we hope everyone to check that out. So before we go, we pretty please ask you to like, comment, subscribe, ring that bell, and spread this shit like syphilis. So to you, I say, from Louisville to Syracuse, to all of our friends and fans of the world at Nerd Cage Live, enjoy life, stay safe, and good night.
Sayonara.
Ooh, trying to get out of the nerd cage, are ya? Well, before you go, hit that subscribe button. And if you're really intrigued, ring that bell. Thank you for dropping by. Until next time, tell everyone you know about Nerd Cage Live!